This episode is proudly sponsored by The Helix, a new innovation district located in New Brunswick, New Jersey, the heart of the Northeast Corridor. The Helix provides a critical ecosystem for innovation by offering a range of physical environments, a vibrant community of leading innovators, and a strategic central location on the Northeast Corridor. The Helix will uniquely mix workspaces, classrooms, laboratories, venues, and collaborative environments, creating a dynamic community and setting for innovative minds. Universities, startups, Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs, researchers, and many others will all call the Helix home. Thus far, the Helix has assembled a community of innovative private and public organizations, such as Rutgers Health, the New Jersey Innovation Hub, RWJ Barnabas Health, Hackensack Meridian Health, universities from Ireland and Israel, and others. The Helix is where ideas will come to life. To learn more, visit helixnj.com.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politi and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rutgers Rant, our Picks Pod edition. We're going to pick the Iowa-Rutgers game, of course. But first, we got a lot of other stuff to talk about late in the week here. We've got a basketball game. I'm sure many Rutgers fans want to talk about the basketball game. We're going to talk about that. We've got the sign-stealing scandal in Michigan continues to bring shrapnel our way here in New Jersey. We've got to talk about that. Let's talk hoops, though, because that was live action. Rutgers Princeton, a 68-61 loss in Trenton, which, as venues go for college basketball, Brian, I wouldn't put that up there with Cameron Indoor Stadium. Perhaps not going to go on the list with the greatest places to see a college basketball game. I'm sure you might agree with me on that one.
I would agree. They placed us on the moon, like about as far as you possibly could to watch the game. The worst seating I've had since I watched St. Peter's win in the Sweet 16 at Wells Fargo. They put us literally, I think, on the ceiling for that game. But you see everything and you see nothing. And look, to get our press box complaints out of the way, they didn't feed us. And then our colleague from the Bergen Record, Chris Eisman, had to go into the concourse, and he discovered what many fans had discovered at that point. He finds a place that is selling hot dogs without the bun. And to tell Eisman's story for him, he asks the lady working the stand, "Hey, do you guys have buns?" And it was as though she had just realized that you can combine a hot dog and buns at the same time. And she ran over to get buns that were probably 200 years old, back from the game where LeBron played there 20 years ago. Probably the same night those buns were brought in.
That was a good news, bad news story, though, for Eisman, because he did get the hot dog at least. Like, we went out looking for food at first, and I stopped at like some crappy I don't know, it's got chicken fingers, which, I was happy to have some sustenance, but he kept on going. To his credit, he kept on walking around that concourse and found a hot dog. Pat, you've covered games at this place, right? I mean, I can't tell. You must be down there for high school stuff.
Yes. The state team wrestling championships were there a couple of years, and it was equally as impossible to think of wrestling, a sport with four mats going at the same time, to figure out who was wrestling on the mats without an announcer.
Oh my God.
Where you guys were sitting. It was just a complete disaster. So the NJSA fixed that, luckily. But yeah, I have been there multiple times, and it is to quote Springsteen, a death trap, a suicide rap.
Was the Wi-Fi as bad for you back in the wrestling days as it was for us?
Wi-Fi.
Good grief.
It might have been when you still had to call for a phone line. No, I'm just kidding.
AOL. Hook up your Mindspring account to get on the Wi-Fi. Traffic outside was brutal. I heard from fans, like one guy DM'd me, and because I was like, there was no one here. And he's like, well, you should have seen how long it takes to get in. And I messaged back to him like, oh, that sounds terrible. He's like, no, it's still terrible. I'm still out here. It's like, oh my God. I don't know. I just don't understand. Whatever. And I get it. There's like clamoring to have Rutgers Princeton from neutral sources, but nobody in Princeton went to this. Like no one from Princeton cared about this. Like all the talk about, oh, Rutgers dodging Princeton, not playing Princeton. Well, there's 100 people in orange at this game. And they went to the Sweet 16 last year and had 5,000 people in Louisville, Kentucky for that. So clearly they will travel if they care. They did not care. So essentially all this game did was take 4,000 people from Rutgers and force them, instead of having their comfortable routine of going to games at the rack, force them 30 miles down the turnpike. It was just, I don't know. It was a complete waste.
I agree. This game should be played every year. It should be played home and home in perpetuity, just like the Seton Hall rivalry at the Rack, at Jadwin, on a weekend, not a weeknight, not a Monday in November, the day after, the daylight savings and everyone's adjusting to that and people have work. And like you said, the traffic situation is an absolute catastrophe. Luckily, you and I avoided it by getting there a bit early. I know a lot of people can't do that because they have jobs, understandably. And I also avoided the food issue because I got to go to Papa's, try the mustard pie beforehand. Unbelievable stuff. Would recommend that. That was a Pat Lenny special. Let me know it was open during the press conference with Shano earlier in the day. So thank you, Pat. But yes, I just think every review from every fan that's gone pretty much has said that they will never, ever step foot in that arena ever again. Even if it was for the birth of their child for some reason, they would never go back to Cure Insurance Arena. And I think from my standpoint, I would like to avoid covering a game there. And I think this game would be much better if it was at Jadwin on a Saturday night in mid-November, not to open the season.
I agree with that totally. But I will just say this, like the idea that Rutgers has to do this for the good of New Jersey college basketball is just nonsense. Like, right, Rutgers has to do what's good for Rutgers, period. Like, no one in Tennessee is like, well, Tennessee's got to play Tennessee Tech or for the good of Tennessee basketball. That, Carolina's got to play NC Greensboro for the good of North Carolina basketball. That doesn't exist. If it's good for Rutgers, if they can get it on their terms, then play Princeton. Right. Otherwise, then scrap it. Like, I just don't think they owe it to New Jersey college basketball. That narrative to me, like the idea they're going to turn this into an event someplace with a triple header where game one is FDU Rider and game two is Monmouth Temple or something. Like, nobody cares about that. I'm sorry. Like, there is no appetite for that whatsoever. Like, there were 5,000 Rutgers fans who wanted to see Rutgers and would have gone anywhere they could drive to see Rutgers, and they were forced to go to Trenton for anyway.
Here's what I will say about this. I personally don't care about the rivalry aspect of this. Like, I wasn't an alum from the 1970s where this was their Seton Hall. I think this game should be played because this is a team with a pulse. This is a team that's beaten Rutgers 3 times out of the last 4 times they've played. This isn't Boston University or Bryant or every team plays tomato cans. I'm not saying, but my point is that I like to see Rutgers be challenged early in the season. That was a great game to watch, I thought. And I know there's this perception that Rutgers has been ducking Princeton. Not to argue about the validity of that, but if you'd stop playing Princeton after losing to them, the one time you've played them in a decade, you are completely ducking them. That narrative will get even stronger. And I think that's totally fair. I think Mitch Henderson has made it very clear he will play this game at the Rack, at Jadwin, on the moon. He'll play it anywhere. So I think Rutgers should play this game just for the sake of, if you're the best team in New Jersey, which I think Rutgers has established itself as the premier college basketball program in New Jersey, then you shouldn't be afraid to play Princeton.
Certainly did not look like the best team in New Jersey on Monday. Devil's advocate here. They did not. I mean, let's talk about the game for a minute. What I didn't like, it just didn't seem like Rutgers had the toughness or the intensity or the want that Princeton did. And early in the game, when, I think we wrote down 5 of the first 7 shots, Brian, that Princeton got a rebound, offensive rebound. Again, it's a size 6'6" kid going up for Princeton. Who's a tough player. I get it, Caden Pierce, but going up against a front line with Cliff Amore and with size and across the board getting these rebounds, it was just kind of like, I mean, do you guys realize this isn't a scrimmage? Do you realize the season just started? Like, there was a feeling there when watching this, like, all right, well, what did you do all fall to get ready for this?
Yeah, so it was, I believe, 4 of their first 5 missed shots Princeton got a rebound on, or 5 of their first 6 shots, and they scored on 4 of their first 5 possessions. The point being that Princeton completely out-hustled, outplayed, out-coached, out-everything Rutgers, not just in the beginning. That set the tone, but I would say the entire game. I think it's very clear that, yes, Princeton has more continuity. They've had this nucleus. They lost Tosan, obviously, but a lot of these guys came back. That is fair.
They lost their best guard, too, isn't playing for Northwestern. So they've lost some people. I mean, this is not the same team that ended the season last year.
Sure. I just think they're clearly more talented. I mean, aside from Cliff Amore, I think there's 3 guys on Princeton that probably start for Rutgers, right? You don't think so?
I mean, at least 1 or 2. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Yeah.
I mean, the backcourt, Rutgers backcourt had a brutal day. Just, they could not finish layups. They could not shoot. Every worry I had about this team, that they couldn't shoot from the outside, that they were going to struggle to finish inside like they did last year, that they were going to have trouble creating any offense in the half court. It's all very clearly there. And again, the first game of the season, a non-tomato can opponent who knows how to play defense, unique offensive. I know Steve Peichel talked about they changed up their screen coverages from last year and all that stuff. Fine, fair enough. But they had a brutal time putting the ball in the hoop. Whenever they did climb back in the game and the crowd was into it, they couldn't get a basket, and they don't defend as well as they did last year, at least not yet.
Yeah,
so
those are 3 strikes right there. Yeah.
So almost nothing went well for Rutgers. So I think you got to hope that you figure some things out in these next couple tomato can games. Boston U, Bryant, Georgetown is a beatable high major team, and hope that this is the worst game they play in the non-conference and not the rule. Because if this is the way they're going to play all season, I'm not even sure the NIT is going to be where they're going to end up.
Pat, it won't be the way they play all season, right? I mean, I think we can agree on that.
Seems like we questioned what is the rotation going to look like on our last podcast, and it seemed like Rutgers didn't even have that figured out.
It's a great point.
And that was like mind blowing to me. It's like Cliff Amori was on the bench for long periods of time. Like what was going on? They were subbing the guards like ad nauseum.
Yeah,
and it just felt like to parlay what you said, Steve. It felt like Rutgers was playing a scrimmage. Princeton was preparing for an NCAA tournament run.
Yeah.
Like Rutgers had no concept of what was going on in this game.
And totally.
That's completely, utterly on the coach.
It's on Steve Peichel. Yeah, and we asked him after the game. It's funny, like we asked him about guard play, and he's like, "Well, like Jermichael Davis was in there for defense." Or you look at the box score; he took 10 shots. He took all the shots down the stretch. And then you're looking at, so you're thinking, all right, how is the team going to replace Mulcahy and Spencer? And I get it. We don't want to, they're not coming back. It's beating a dead horse. But Cam Spencer takes those shots late in the game. Instead, you've got a freshman who's playing in his first college game, jacking up shots down the stretch with a chance to get the team back in the game. And the other part is like, everyone talks about Mulcahy slowing this team down and, they're going to be faster without Mulcahy. Well, okay, his opening line in Washington, right? 34 minutes, 9 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Like the 2 things you forget that he did well as a 6'8" guard was get in there and rebound. Like you think that would have been, that start of that game would have been different if Paul Mulcahy's out there. They're not going to give up the offensive rebounds the way they did. This team didn't rebound together. It didn't distribute the ball together. It wasn't sound offensively. Missed shots at the rim. A lot to digest there.
Even when they pushed the pace, they weren't particularly controlled in transition. I think they outscored Princeton in transition, but that's because Princeton doesn't want to play in transition. They play in the half court. So they needed more from their guards, obviously, as you said. They needed more from Andre Hyatt, who had a tough night. They needed more from Derek Simpson. They needed more from Gavin Griffiths, who is clearly struggling on the defensive end. And I think that is something that people didn't take into account. I think his offense is there. I think he certainly can help them offensively. But if he keeps getting beat on backdoor cuts and can't really, I watched back some of the film. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched some of it. And at times it looks like he really doesn't know what he is supposed to be doing, which is understandable for a freshman. But the issue is that he is the highest ranked kid they've ever signed. And there are a lot of expectations on him to replace a lot of what they lost. I think I don't want to be armchair psychologist here, but I would empathize with him if he's having a difficult time mentally getting through that. It's a hard place to be in. He obviously struggled in his first game. He struggled in stretches against St. John's. And I think he needs to kind of get help easing in because, unfortunately, he's a big part of any hope of their success. So they're going to need him to be able to defend well enough to stay on the floor, to be able to help them on the offensive end.
Now they need to go 5-0 here the next couple weeks, get back to 5-1 before they play Illinois, I believe. And that's kind of the stretch. That's it. This is they can't afford to have another one of these. I think that's the key, especially against the schedule coming up. So
I would say they could afford one more non-conference loss against a good team, Seton Hall, Mississippi State, Wake Forest.
Right.
If you lose 2 of those, you get 3 non-conference losses. And especially if you lose to any of the other teams on the non-conference slate, then you're really playing from behind when the Big Ten schedule starts back up.
All right, let's dive into the sign stealing thing, which is something that Greg Shannon did not want to talk about. And this is a classic diversionary tactic here. When you ask someone a question and you don't want to answer it and you get angry at the question, that's sort of what happened. I knew you guys, I wasn't there, but I did certainly see the quotes, and I know that you two were the ones asking the questions about this. And he was very angry playing Iowa. This is the kind of I'm checked off that we have to address this. It's like, hey, coach, not our fault. This is a national story that has exploded in many directions, and Rutgers is taking shrapnel. And I dare say, understandably so, right? If you're Michigan and you're trying to defend, you're trying to avoid your head coach getting suspended or something beyond that for a sign stealing scandal, what are you going to do? What is your answer? Your answer is not, we didn't do it. That's clearly not the case. Your answer is, well, look, it was done against us. Everyone's doing it. That's your defense. If you're trying to appeal to the Big Ten, and that's what they threw out there with Rutgers apparently. And again, Greg Schiano did not deny it, with Rutgers sharing signals to Purdue before the Big Ten championship game.
The best way to sum it up, and I saw this on Twitter, I won't take credit for it, is that what Michigan is being accused of doing is going in and stealing the test on the math test from the teacher's desk. That's what Michigan did. What Rutgers did was talk to their buddy in first period math and say, okay, what were the hard questions? Here's how we can negate the situation. So it's like, all right, we colluded, but didn't bust down the door, openly violate the rules. So it's really a question of, did Rutgers actually violate the rules, and what could be coming from this? It's not going to go away, and it's going to keep coming. And I think Michigan is in the right to point the finger. We got to wait for the facts to come out, and that's really all we can do.
Brian, did Rutgers break a rule, do you think?
I don't think Rutgers is in any danger of punishment. Right. I think what one can argue is that they didn't technically break any NCAA rules, from my understanding. They maybe perhaps violated the unbelievably vague sportsmanship policy, whatever. I mean, people do unsportsmanlike things every day in college football. So every program, this was been Dan Wetzel's point the whole time in the saga, is like, if you punish Michigan for this, then what about every other thing that happens like this? Because it seems, it's been pretty widely talked about that it's not uncommon for buddies on one staff to talk to their coaching buddies on another staff and say, hey, just so you know, when we played Michigan and they threw up an M, that means they're running inside zone to the right and stuff like that. So what Michigan did is blatantly violate an age, like a 30-year-old rule that just to save money, where they traveled to games, filmed, and dissected film. But my argument is that Michigan had to do some work. They got the raw footage. They had to break down the signs and do a lot of work to figure out all that stuff out. When Purdue gets the signs from Rutgers and from Ohio State, Brian Day, by the way, he denied that Ohio State did that. Greg Schiano, we asked him, is it true? And Pat asked him, has the Big Ten contacted you? And he never once said, no, it's not true, and no, the Big Ten did not contact us, just for the record. But anyway, when Purdue is getting signals from Rutgers and from Ohio State, they're doing none of the work. The work is done for them. They literally save 10 to 12 hours of dissecting work, which I would argue is even more pejorative, right? Like, Michigan is wasting resources to figure out other teams' signals. Purdue is just getting gifted the answers. So,
but the rule is, the problem was the in-person scouting.
I understand. And look, I'm not debating the rules. Maybe the rules are stupid. Have we thought about that? Maybe the rules are really dumb.
Well, the whole thing is stupid, because if you had headset, it's 2023. You had if you just then you could avoid the signals in the first place. If you could just use the technology that's readily available, and no longer to the point that a program can't afford it, and it's no longer to the point where you might be at some game and it would go out for a quarter. I mean, we're here now. We've got this. That's the bigger problem. That aside, the world that they're in, the Michigan 10-page letter, the indefensible precedent was the word that was in there that sort of caught me. Like, if you're the Big Ten, are you setting a precedent that you cannot? I mean, you're going down a slippery slope if you make a suspension for this, Pat.
You are, because you're ruling before the investigation is complete. That goes against every single judiciary type situation in America, right? Like, you're innocent until proven guilty in America. And the Big Ten's just going to step in and rule, opens up the door for so many other backdoor appeal, or apparently you cannot appeal this type of I read that somewhere. You can't appeal this sportsmanship violation. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is, like, there are going to be lawsuits filed, and it's going to keep dragging on. And the bureaucracy of it, which I said on our last podcast, is never going to ultimately result in any punishment for anybody. It's just going to keep getting kicked down the road. And that's just what happens with the NCAA.
Yeah. What I would say is that I understand the anger from the ADs and the coaches who got screwed by this. They're making a lot of noise in all these meetings. They're having a meeting every day and complaining to Tony Petitti, as they should. It's their right, and I understand. If you give into the anger and you punish Jim Harbaugh unilaterally before the NCAA rules, before the investigation is over, every year, every time there is anything remotely that bothers these ADs and coaches, they will march into Tony Petitti's office and say, suspend all these guys for these dumb rules. And what is Tony Petitti going to say? I can't do that. And they'll say, why not? You did that to Michigan without any investigation being done. So again, this opens Pandora's box. I think it's in everyone's best interest, frankly. Let this all play out. Let Michigan win the Big Ten. Let them play in the playoff. Let them lose to Georgia or whoever. And then punish Jim Harbaugh in January.
It feels a little like, it strikes me a little like Deflategate with the Patriots. Like, we know they did something wrong, and we know that there should be a punishment, but there's also the underlying current of everybody hates them too. I think that's part of it, that's riding up like the Patriots of the Big Ten here in Ann Arbor. All right. So it's fascinating. We'll follow it, continue to follow it, see what happens in the next couple of weeks, if there's a punishment coming, and if it continues to involve the Scarlet Knights somehow.
The Helix is coming. That's right. Ground is broken, foundations are being laid, and the plans are being realized. For those that have not yet heard, the Helix is a new innovation district in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Smack dab in the middle of the Northeast Corridor, the Helix is a place for innovators to gather and innovation to take action. It offers a range of physical environments, a vibrant innovation community, and a strategic central location in close proximity to New York, Philly, Boston, and D.C. The Helix will uniquely mix workspaces, classrooms, laboratories, venues, and collaborative environments, creating a dynamic community and setting for innovative minds. Universities, startups, Fortune 500 companies, entrepreneurs, researchers, and many others are already signing up to call the Helix home. Thus far, the Helix has assembled a community of innovative private and public organizations such as Rutgers Health, the New Jersey Innovation Hub, RWJ Barnabas Health, Hackensack Meridian Health, universities from Ireland and Israel, and others. The Helix is coming. Visit helixnj.com to learn more.
All right. Can we talk about Iowa? We got a football game this week, guys. We got a game this week. We got the big game this week. Heading out to Iowa City. The Hawkeyes are one of the most fascinating teams in college football, not because they're fascinating to watch, but because they do not score. And it's become like a national story. Just when the tracker was on for how many points they're going to score to keep Brian Ferenz's job. Brian Ferenz is not going to return as offensive coordinator next year, but he is still currently offensive coordinator, which is fascinating. It's just a weird situation. I mean, if you don't think the guy can call plays next year, why do you have him calling plays for a team that's 7-2 with a chance to? The whole thing's strange.
It's been strange from the start when they put that clause into his contract that he had to score 325 points or whatever to keep his job for next year. So it's been a fascinating ride for the Brian Ferentz story that I'm very sad it's going to go away, because I enjoyed every week the Yodel man climbing up the mountain and not getting there. But you're right. What is the point? It's just this is what happens when nepotism gets in the way of success, and there's no way around it except for the athletic administration to step in. So a very interesting situation. I'm so curious to see this. We haven't even talked about the over-under of 28.5.
Yeah.
The lowest in the history of college football. So
yeah, it's you get a sense, is Iowa defense really good, or have they just played a crummy schedule? Like, I look at that schedule this morning. It's 31-0 against Penn State. All right, they beat Wisconsin, but that was sort of a damaged Wisconsin team at that point. I mean, they barely beat Northwestern. They barely beat Minnesota, right? I mean, it's just not, if Rutgers has that same schedule, they lost to Minnesota, right? I'm sorry, they lost to Minnesota. I mean, if Rutgers has that same schedule, are they 7-2? I mean, honestly, what's your sense?
I get the sense that this is the ultimate if Rutgers was in the West Division situation. And if Rutgers was in the West, that's why this game is so important. Like, you're going to see, if you were doing the Big Ten power rankings, Rutgers could make a huge jump and realistically be the fourth best team in this conference if they can beat Iowa and prove that, like, when you see the Big Ten championship game, Ohio State, Michigan versus whomever coming out of the West, probably Iowa, it very well could have been Rutgers in that game if they were in the West. So I think this is a huge opportunity for Rutgers to get a signature win and to show just how ridiculous this whole conference setup is. And thankfully it's going away.
All right. So what has to happen for that to happen, Brian? I mean, obviously the Rutgers ran the ball against Ohio State. That's going to be the recipe here. Can't make mistakes. We've said that. We've said that many times. Are they going to be able to run the ball against Iowa's defense?
Not many teams have. I think Iowa's defense is legit. It's the only reason they're winning games. They're winning. That's how good they are. They're Herculean effort every weekend to carry that awful offense on their back. Like it's of course they're good. I mean, Iowa would not be 7-2 if they didn't have a good defense. Can Rutgers run the ball against them? They ran the ball against Ohio State. That gives me a lot of encouragement that they can do it against Iowa. I'll have to see it before I know for sure. I think the biggest thing Rutgers has to do is not turn the ball over. In a game where, again, the over-under is 28.5. Iowa has played games that have finished in the 20s for something like 3 straight weeks. The margin of error is going to be so razor thin. If you throw a pick six, as Gavin Wimsatt has done in all 3 of their losses, it's over. It's over. Because Iowa only needs to score 14 points to win this game, right? Like, you can't turn the ball over. You can't let that offense score. You cannot let that offense score a touchdown. That to me is inexcusable. Frankly, if they score a touchdown, the game should be over automatically. Golden, whatever the overtime rules are. You score a touchdown with Kirk Ferentz's offense or Brian Ferentz's offense, you win the game. Congratulations. You get a trophy. And I would normally say get a special team score. Iowa's special teams are elite, really, really good. Maybe the best punter in the country, maybe the best kicker in the country, maybe the best punt returner in the country. Just really, really good. They have to avoid giving up a special teams touchdown because Cooper DeJean, however you say his name, almost won the game for them against Minnesota, has won a game for them before the season with a return touchdown. So you have to not give scores away, score at least once somehow, and pray that nothing crazy happens because this game is going to end, 14-10, something like that.
All right. So we've got last week, it was a 19.5 point spread. And
so last week we told ourselves early in the year, never again are we going to pick a flat number. We got to pick halves because they're going to push. And in Ann Arbor, they pushed. We'll never do it again. Obviously, our genius made us do 19 for Ohio State. And what happened? Ohio State won by 19. So we have 2 pushes.
No, we did not do 19. We did a half, didn't we?
We did 19.
No, did we really?
We did 19. And if we were going to do a half, I want 18.5. I don't want 19.5 because it was not 19.5 in any book. It was 18.5 or 19.
I can't believe we did 19. I need confirmation of this. Is this true, Pat? Are you telling me we did 19? We have another push?
It's in print, unfortunately.
Oh my God. I can't believe that. That's amazing. I don't remember that at all. I'm going to hope there's some record of this on the internet. I'm going to have to look it up. All right.
So you're telling me. Listen back to the old podcast. I haven't done the homework. I'm 99% sure it was 19.
Well, whose fault was this then?
Yours.
It was not my fault. Was it really?
You said 19, and then it was my fault for not being like, hey, Steve, let's not do this again.
I thought I said 19.5, and that's what I said.
Okay, let's go on the assumption that it was 19.5.
Because if I said 19.5, I'm wrong now. You're giving me an opportunity.
No, that's not true. If you said 19.5, then I lose. So I want 19.
Didn't I lose too? I picked.
This is terrible radio. Cover. This is terrible radio. Let's do this off pod.
I don't know if it's terrible. I think it's pretty funny. I picked 31-7. I picked them to easily cover.
Yeah. So if it was 19, you would win. 19.5, you would win.
No, but I picked Ohio State minus 19.5.
Oh, right. Good point. I also picked Ohio State to cover, I think.
Yes.
You both wanted 19.5. I wanted 19 or 18.5.
Rutgers, Ohio State picks. That's too funny.
I'm pretty sure in print I said 19, and I think on the pod you said 19 as well.
All right. Okay, well, let's go with that then. All right.
So this week we're not going to do that. This week we have Iowa minus 1.5.
Minus 1.5.
All right, 1.5.
It's 1.5 now. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm still. This means I'm still in first place. Is that what you're here to tell me?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. It all works out then in the end. These pushes are fine. Ties are good as a win for me. All right, so I go first. Is that what that also means?
Correct.
All right. I'm bullish on the Scarlet Knights in this game. I really do think they're the better football team. I get it that it's on the road, which gives me a little bit of pause in picking them. And Iowa's defense is excellent. I'm worried, of course, all the things. Gavin Wimsatt can't make mistakes. I get all that. I just think that I saw something from this team that I hadn't seen in a long time against Ohio State in the trenches. I get it that it's a different game, and they might not be able to run the ball as well against Iowa, but I do think they're going to sustain a couple drives. I think the defense is good enough to shut out a really bad Iowa defense. And I'm going to take the over. Woo!
Wow.
Going Rutgers 17, Iowa 13. How's that sound?
I was very tempted to pick the Scarlet Knights as well. I think this is the first game that I've personally been conflicted. We are 9-0 straight up. I think all of us. Or no,
I'm not 9-0. Are you kidding me?
Pat and I are 9-0 straight up. You are obviously not. This is the first one I've been really, really conflicted. And I really want to pick Rutgers, but a lot of things are keeping me away. The road crowd, the fact Rutgers has never beaten a team with a winning record in the Big Ten, the fact that I just cannot get myself to trust Gavin Wimsatt to not throw an interception. Like I need to see that before I believe it. The fact that I'm not sure Rutgers can run the ball against Iowa. All these factors, like they're giving me pause. I trust Jay Patel to win a field goal game because this is going to be a field goal game. I would not be shocked at all if we're in the fourth quarter, Rutgers is down 3 points and Jay Patel has to hit a game-tying field goal and he nails it. I just don't think Rutgers has quite enough to overcome the behemoth that is this Iowa defense. So I will go Iowa 13, Rutgers 9.
Wow. Okay. That's a barn burner. Woo. All right. Finish it up, Lenny.
Okay. As you all know, on our last podcast, I proclaimed that the Scarlet Knights would come out victorious, and I'm not going to change my mind. I've thought since Cade McNamara got hurt for Iowa, this team has completely fallen off offensively. And that's the difference to me. Rutgers has a better offense than Iowa by a mile. And I think that what Rutgers proved against Ohio State is what's going to change this game. Like Rutgers is going to be able to bully Iowa. And that's a bold statement, but I think it's true. And Kyle Monangai deserves another shout out and just praise for what he's done. And I think this is going to be just another example of this guy running for 5 yards after contact, 50 yards in the fourth quarter. And it's going to be one of those games where Rutgers just does enough to win on both sides of the ball. And I almost see this playing out like the Indiana game where Rutgers ends up running the ball 60 times to 10 passes. To me, that's going to be the game plan and the path to victory. So I'm going to go Rutgers 17, Iowa 10, and the under.
It's not the under. Is it the under? Yes, it is the under. Okay, 17-10.
By 1.5.
By 1. Nice. All right. We should keep track of the over-under, too. It'd be fun next year. All right.
I couldn't go back and do retroactively. I'd like a bonus pick for both of you guys. Kyle Monangai is 97 yards away from becoming the first 1,000-yard rusher at Rutgers since Juwan Jamison in 2012.
Wow.
Will Kyle Monangai hit 97 yards or over to break that barrier against Iowa?
I'm going to go no.
I'm going yes.
Wow, okay.
My just spiel for Monangai love.
It feels like a 28 carries, 73-yard kind of day to me. I don't think he's gonna. Yeah, that's
break a long one.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
I agree with you guys in that this is going to be a very run-heavy game. I think you've got to run the ball a lot, and again, to try to avoid turnovers and mistakes through the air. I'll say yes. I think Kyle Monangai has proven. I was skeptical again because he has struggled against good defenses before, Virginia Tech and Michigan and Wisconsin, but he did it against Ohio State. And I don't expect another fumble Ruski, but I think that he'll have one big play. I think he'll do enough to, I'll say 105, 28 carries, 105.
There you go. All right. We'll see. We'll see if that happens. All right. Boomer Zoomer, alumni game. You ready? Let's knock this out. You were good last week. You came roaring back. I don't know what to expect this week. I think this is an easy week. I'm going to put the over-under on 6.5, Pat.
That's perfect. I know Brian knows his agricultural history, so he's going to have great success in this one.
You're gonna go over, all right, but just to be clear, Pat, I'm not giving him Ashton Kutcher. I'm not giving him that.
Sure, fine.
He didn't graduate, but did you know this? This is interesting. Did you know Ashton Kutcher went to Iowa and he was majoring in biomedical engineering? How about that, huh?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, interesting.
You're nodding. You know who that is, right?
Ashton Kutcher?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
He was in that 70 show.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good.
He was in that movie with Mila Kunis, who's is it No Strings Attached or Friends with Benefits? One of those two.
Yep.
Cheesy rom-coms. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, you don't get any credit for that.
Biomedical engineering to male modeling.
There you go.
Perfect careers.
Common pipeline. And by the way, my freshman year, I lived on Cook campus at Rutgers, next to where they have the horses and all the animals. So every day I walked back to my dorm, I smelled the fresh scent of manure. So I'm all about the agricultural. I'm
Lovely.
all Iowa right here. So.
All right. For 1 point, can you tell me who Tom Arnold is?
Oh my God, this name sounds so. He's an actor, right? He's an actor, right?
Yes. Can we do a little bit more? You're gonna have to give me a little bit.
I know the name. Give me something. Give me something.
Okay, I'll give you a hint. He's married. He was married to someone particularly famous
in a show or IRL.
In IRL.
I got nothing. I got nothing.
Pat, what are we gonna do? Not gonna give him just an actor, right?
I didn't know this one either.
Tom Arnold he's married to Roseanne, the actor.
Oh, wait, was he married to Roseanne in the show?
No, he wasn't. That was John Goodman. He's married to him in real life. He's been in a bunch of stuff. No, okay. All right. I thought that was an easy one. Now I'm a little worried about number 2. All right, number 2.
It's always a 80s, 90s actor.
2 points.
Switch it up a little bit.
Can you tell me who Gene Wilder is?
That's a rock star, no?
No, that's not a rock star. You're thinking of Gene Simmons from Kiss, I believe.
Probably.
Gene Wilder, you don't really...
Is he an actor?
He is an actor, yes. He's just, I mean...
One of the most iconic roles of all time.
I can't even I don't even know where to begin with Gene Wilder, right? I mean, am I wrong? He's like comedic actor, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein.
Is he not Willy Wonka?
He is Willy Wonka. He's Willy Wonka. Wow. Okay.
I never would have guessed Iowa alum. That's good.
I know, right? I was gonna put it at number 1. But then, he's a little older. I'll put Tom Arnold number 1. That's a little easier. I should have given him Ashton Kutcher, clearly, if he just finished his biomedical engineering degree. All right, for 3 points. No longer optimistic here, but for 3 points, can you tell me who Tennessee Williams is?
The playwright?
Okay.
Yes. What did he write? Not Streetcar Named Desire, was it?
He did, didn't he?
Ooh.
Yes, absolutely. Cat in the Hot Tin Roof.
There we go.
The Glass Menagerie.
Great job.
I thought he was from Tennessee, frankly. So I'm surprised he's from Iowa.
I didn't know that either, but that's what he is from. All right, 3 points. You're back in it. You can win here. You can get the over. Number 4, 4 points. Alex Karras.
No, athlete.
But he's many things. He crossover person.
Alex Karras. I have no idea. Athlete was just a shot in the dark. Is he a swimmer?
No, he's the big football player. Went into acting. He was the dad in Webster. All sorts of crossover roles. I mean, Hall of Famer, Iowa football offensive lineman, professional wrestler, sportscaster. No,
Renaissance man.
Yeah, Alex Karras. Okay. All right. I thought that one you might know because of the sports connection, but that's a tough one. I'll say it's a tough one.
Thank you.
And finally, for 5 points in the win, this is a tough one, but you're a Renaissance man, Brian. I think you got this. Tell me who David Sanborn is.
Killing me, Steve. You're killing me, man. I have no idea.
Wah, wah. He's a famous saxophonist, 6-time Grammy winner.
How was I supposed to know that?
I don't know. You're Gene Wilder. How are you supposed to know David Sanborn? I don't know. I can't give you.
You think
It's Iowa?
You think I'm listening to jazz while I'm doing my film review or something? Like, how am I supposed to know who that? All right, name me the most famous, not Louis Armstrong, the most famous saxophone or brass instrument player you know. Name one guy.
You name one guy. There's a million guys.
Name one.
Give me a break.
Name one. You can't name one.
Name one what? Name what instrument would you like me to name? David Sanborn?
One saxophonist.
One saxophone? Wynton Marsalis? Does he count? Can you name him?
Clarence.
How about Clarence Clemens? What to say? How about Clarence Clemens? Does he count?
You guys are making these guys up. I'm convinced.
I wish it'd be great if Clarence Clemens went to Iowa, but of course he did not. All right, well, you did not. Bad week for you. That's all I gotta say.
He was a college football player, though, Clarence Clemens.
He was, yes.
Where do you play?
I want to say like North Carolina, like a
small school.
Yeah, small school. I think like not Division I.
Gotcha. All right, well.
Yeah. All right. Iowa alumni, tough one.
I
figured.
That was tough.
It was tough.
No farmers. Disappointing.
Well, yeah. Could you imagine if they gave him a famous horticulturalist? Can you imagine when Brian's head would explode?
That was the whole point of this thing, though, right? Like, I didn't know what an astronaut was. So maybe like did the guy that invented corn not go to Iowa or something?
It's gonna fall on the list of like memes that are coming for you, Brian.
This was I almost put this one in there. Terry O'Quinn.
Football player?
No, he was John Locke on Lost. There's not a great list. Chuck Grassley. If I tried that, could you have gotten that since you're so big on politicians now?
Football player?
I was. I can't do Al Jarreau because you didn't know David Sanborn, another American
hockey player.
Yes, hockey player from Iowa. And I couldn't give you Tom Brokaw because he didn't graduate. Because you got mad at me last time with graduates. So there you go.
All right,
you got anything for me? You want to embarrass me now in return?
You want me to go first, Pat, than you?
We have a 2 words, one you should get and one you have no shot at getting. So what do you want first?
I would like to start me with the easy one.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
All right. This is pretty self-explanatory, I would think. Do you know what a situationship is?
A situationship? Okay, like when you're dating someone based on where you're living or you're on the road, when you travel someplace, you're in a situationship, right? Like you're
creative
because she's around you at certain times.
Creative. I like that. I will give it to you just for that. It's a situationship is like that weird period where you're dating someone, but you're not really dating. They're not your significant other, but they're the only person you're seeing. But nowadays in the modern era, no one wants to actually ask someone else to be their girlfriend or boyfriend. So you're kind of in a situationship with someone. You know, you're dating, but you're not dating.
All right. That doesn't seem kids really use that word. I'm in a
situationship.
After I got that wrong, I just assumed that we're shipping.
You're close. Like you're in the vicinity of both of them. So
I'm not giving it myself.
All right. A boomer like you, Steve. This word had a write-up in the New York Times, and I found it on OprahWinfrey.com.
Okay.
You should, by all accounts, know what the word cheugy means.
Cheugy?
CHEUGY.
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 The term was coined by 23-year-old Gabby Rassin and was used among her friend group before it became widely known. Widely known.
CHUEGY. Cheugy.
Put the E in the U. Cheugy.
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 Cheugy or Cheugy?
Cheugy.
Cheugy. It's something that's not bougie. It's like it's a little step below bougie. It's Cheugy.
That's a really good guess. Really good guess.
And it's still wrong.
It describes anything that's considered uncool, untrendy, or people who deliberately stick to older trends.
Oh man.
AKA boomers like Steve Politi.
I'm definitely Cheugy. I'm bougie and Cheugy. I've got both things going. I got both strikes against me. You're accusing me of making David Sanborn up, and I've got Cheugy. Oh, it's in the New York. It's in the New York Times.
Oprah
Well, Oprah Winfrey uses Chuji. I can see her talking to her friends.
Anything, according to the originators of the word, anything emblazoned with the word "girl boss," wooden signs with inspirational quotes, the show Friends, The Office merch, or Ugg boots are considered Chuji or Chugi, however you want to pronounce it.
Chuji now, man. The wooden signs thing, I get that. That's totally Chuji. I can see that. But Friends, people still watch Friends, right? I don't. I mean, I'm past that. Office merch, we got some Office merch in this house. Oh, well.
R.I.P. What's his name? R.I.P.
Matthew Perry.
R.I.P. Matthew Perry.
I also wear Matthew Perry.
I wear Ugg sandals, by the way, so I guess I am Chuji. They're comfy.
It's good. All right, good job, guys. I like that, Chuji. I'm going to use that. All right. What else we got? Anything else? We got field hockey tomorrow. We got women's soccer coming up. What's the breakdown here? Will we be able to talk about either one of these sports next week other than to recap the season?
Feels like field hockey's in a winnable game, bounce back situation. So they'll be taking on Harvard, number 6 versus 8 in the country. You know, it's when you think of the NCAA field hockey tournament, you can't think of it like basketball, where 64 teams get in. I think it's 18 get into the field hockey tournament. It's very low number, and it's tough to get in. So you're going to face a really good team right off the bat. So Rutgers has a tough draw, and it should be a good game.
North Carolina field hockey is a little choosy at this point, I would say. They've been around for years. They're not current.
They're the number one. They're the number one team in the country.
Yeah, I guess they're choosy.
Right?
Yeah, they do. 23-year-old Erin Matson, correct.
Oh.
Good stuff. Women's soccer going to make it through?
They're in the tournament. They're playing Columbia, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think they're better than an Ivy League team, but obviously, as we saw at the start of the week, not necessarily.
They've learned that lesson this week.
Yeah. So, and then obviously we have hoops Friday and Sunday. We won't be at either game because we'll be traveling to Iowa. But they play Boston U on Friday. Should be a pretty easy win. And then they play Bryant, whose coach just got acquitted. His alleged hit and run charge was dismissed. His insurance company said they would pay the damages. And he's still on leave because of undisclosed situation in Bryant. So turbulent, but they do have Doug Eater.
To say the Nutley stash is there, right? Yep.
Does he still have the mustache?
No, how do you shave that? That's his whole thing. You can't shave the stash.
I feel like I would have seen a story about it if he did.
Right. We would have done something on that. Absolutely. Kevin Armstrong, our Doug Eater beat writer, would have had some take on that. Absolutely.
I believe they have another kid that used to play at Miami who's good. So I don't think Bryant is necessarily a pushover, but you have to think when your coach is being, going viral for a police officer interviewing him in his driveway, and he looks erratic, and he starts asking the police officer if he wants to go shoot jumpers in the backyard, you'd think that's a little bit of a distraction. So I would think that Rutgers will easily put Bryant away.
I watched that one. That was some bad video there.
Bigger distraction. Bryant basketball coach or Greg Schiano ticked off at the question about science.
Could you bring it full circle?
I would say Bryant basketball coach. So much of a distraction. You think they had
I thought he was acquitted.
So he was acquitted of the hit and run. The other things that he is allegedly accused of and that is causing him to be suspended indefinitely are still not cleared up. You think the guys on the team were sitting around for a film session just watching the 20-minute tape? Like, look at Coach. What is he saying? What is he doing with his police
absolutely.
officer?
There's no question they watched that. Kidding me? Right away. They were gathered in the locker room and laughing their butts off about that. All right. We'll be back to recap those games on Monday. Iowa, you guys, I'm not going. Have fun in Iowa City. And we'll see if Rutgers can come back with what would be one of the biggest victories they've had in Big Ten play. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at NJ.com/insider.